good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the second part of our Florida-friendly certified yard checklist program. This is part 2. I am Lilly Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities, and my program is Florida-friendly landscaping. Joining me today is Dr. Lester from the Hernando County Extension Office. Here's our contact information, our emails and our phone numbers. And if you have any questions you wanted to talk directly or specifically to us about, we'll be glad to help you. Also joining me today is Karen Mojica from Mosquito Control, Hernando County Mosquito Control. And we're going to have her talk a little bit at the end about what's going on in mosquito control. But let's get started with, okay, I'm going to hide the waiting room, so you two have to you have to let people in. How do we go about getting a certified Florida-friendly yard? What does that all mean? If you have not watched the first installment of this 3-part series, I encourage you to do so, to watch part 1, because on that, in order to qualify for a Florida-friendly certified yard, maybe you're watching this because you really do wish to have a sign and a certificate saying that your yard qualifies as Florida-friendly. Before I forget, let me say when I can only qualify yards in Hernando County. So let's get that out there as well. But, you know, call your county extension office if you are in a different county, and it's very possible. Everything I'm showing you is from the Florida Friendly Landscaping office right out of Gainesville, and they run all the counties. So this is not something they would not have heard of, and, you know, you might actually be able to participate in your own county. Also, you might be watching us just because, well, I don't, you know, you may say I don't need a sign and a certificate. I just want to know, does my yard, you know, is it really, really Florida friendly? And exactly what are the qualifications to be certified? And just so you know, if you're there or how far you have to go. In part 1, we discussed the actual checklist. So I encourage you to watch that. And what we're going to go over today and next Tuesday works together with that checklist. You can't just do the checklist and that be it. You have to also qualify and meet some of the goals as they break it down per principle for Florida friendly landscaping. And there are two levels. There's a silver level and a gold level. So what we're going to talk about today is just 4 of the principles. And also the next step would be that I like to give you this training. I like you to go get the list yourself. It's on the internet, and check it over, and then you can call me out. Right now, the only trainer, or right now the only qualifier, I should say, in Hernando County would be me. Maybe I will work on training some Master Gardener volunteers to be able to go out and certify your yard, but that's going to be way in the future, post-COVID, you know, all of that. And something new that many people may not know who have been had Florida-friendly landscaping yards, certified yards in the past, is now they are only good for 24 months. So basically, you know, any Master Gardener or anybody, you know, who qualified before, you know, you may want to think about recertifying. And I think that's the first people I'm going to contact directly are Hernando County Master Gardeners and say, hey, you know, your certification may have run out. Do you want me to come out and we'll see what we can do about having Florida-friendly certified yards? This last rectangle there shows the actual link where you can find this list. I also put it on Facebook this morning for the event. Also, you can just Google, literally Google Florida-friendly certified yard checklist, and it should come up. so that you can find it. Okay. Now we're going to break these down. They break it down by principle. First, there was the list, and you have to qualify for everything on that list. There's a silver level and a gold level. Gold level, you have to qualify for everything on silver and then some extras. So also you have to get a certain amount of points within each category. So how it works on the list, you have to get everything on that list. As they break it down by principle, like here, if you want silver, you have to get 3 out of the 6 points, and each thing I mentioned is going to be 1 point. So you have to get 3 out of 6. If you want gold, it's going to be 4 out of 6 in the right plant, right place category. So what is it that they were talking about that they are looking for in a certified yard when we're following principle number 1, right plant, right place? One of them, let me move things around a little bit here. One of them is when it comes to trees and shrubs, the trees and shrubs in your yard, they are positioned to improve the building's heating and cooling capacity if space allows. This is interesting that this is kind of thrown in there as a Florida certified yard when, all the training and stuff we do, I don't think we cover this enough. There are publications out there. The name for this, what we are talking about here, is enviroscaping. And if you Googled enviroscaping and put UF after that, you will find a lot of good publications and information. It's not a practice that only happens in Florida. It's certainly, probably a worldwide practice, and you can learn a lot about it. Enviroscaping would be one of those things that you don't have to learn about it just through Florida avenues, because the practice is, we're not talking about specific type of plants. We're just saying how it can help your energy bills. It can help your, the shade in your house. Basically, you want to arrange the trees and the shrubs that, here in Florida, that allow it to be warmer in your house in the winter and cooler in your house in the summer. And there is a whole lot of information on that. So you actually get a point if you have enacted these. And here's a whole lot, of information that it shows you ways to place the trees. You can use them as windbreaks in the north. Make sure they're, good and filled out trees in the summer to provide you some nice shade, and some nice deciduous trees that let the sun through to make it warmer in the winter. Even smaller trees, it says, looks like maybe a crepe myrtle or a chase tree or something there, can shade your air conditioner unit. That type of thing. I have, that's why a lot of times you see the shrubs around the air conditioner unit. Took my shrubs a while to grow up and actually be useful, because my air conditioner unit faces the west. It's like the worst place ever. But now that the shrubs are surrounding it, it doesn't have to work as hard. So that's one of the ways you get 1 point. Now, and how this works, when we're talking about turf, when we're talking about irrigation, when we're talking about fertilizer, if you don't have turf, you're automatically going to get the points for the turf recommendations. If you do not use supplemental irrigation, if you do not use a supplemental fertilizer, you're going to automatically get the points. So if you don't do it, you get the points. If you do it, they want you to do it properly. So if you have turf, they want turf to have a purpose for being there, not just, that's what we do. Everyone has lawns. They wanted to have a functional purpose. What do you do out there? Is that where your kids play? Is that where you let your dogs out? But they get pretty generous with the purpose of turf, because it does have a lot of purposes it can do. So, erosion control is a purpose of turf as well as nutrient uptake. So if you're not pouring nutrients down there, it doesn't need to have anything to uptake. But it's pretty generous. But as long as you are aware that your lawn has a purpose for being there, it's not just there because everyone has lawns. Also, if you do have, you think Florida is all 100% flat, and that is not necessarily true. We do have, some places are pretty hilly. The more east you go in the Brooksville area, we have actual hills. But, some places you have slopes like here, which you can, erosion can become a problem. So if you have a completely flat yard and erosion is not an issue in your yard, that we would just write NA over this. But if you do have an erosion potential and you are actively managing it, a lot of times turf is the best and easiest way to actively manage where you might have an erosion problem. But it's not the only thing out there. Ground covers, mulch, building terraces, beds, things like that, really getting into actual landscaping. So if there is areas in your yard that are erosion prone and they are being managed, then you get a point for that. Okay. Also, if there's areas in your yard where turf is very difficult to either grow or difficult to take care of, and you have opted for something else instead, then you get another point there. Like this is kind of up on I guess they walk up steps because there's a door there. So if somebody attempted to put turf there, first of all, it might not grow very well in those kind of conditions. Second of all, that is a maintenance nightmare. So what these people did, they put this Asiatic jasmine. So if there are, basically what we're looking for, if there are areas where turf just does not want to grow, we don't want you trying to put too much effort into it, too much water, too much fertilizer, too much, maintenance on your part. We would rather you take those areas that are too tough for turf and that you put something else there. So then you get a point for that. Shrub location. I had a hard time finding a good picture. And I also have to stay, I can't just grab pictures off the internet. They either have to be my pictures or belong to UF in some way. So it was hard to find a picture. So let's just assume these shrubs, the leaders, what do they mean by the leaders? They mean the trunks, the main trunks are 2.5 feet away from the foundation of the house. That is going to, it solves a lot of things for you, and it makes the bush be able to grow, and also someone be able to get into, this house is a brick house, but what if it's something somebody wanted to paint sometime, or if there is some utility boxes or something there. So we tend to put bushes way too close to the house. So you get a point if the main central leader or the trunk is at least 2.5 feet away from the foundation of the house. Trees. Again, we're going to talk about trees. You get another point if they are an appropriate distance away from the house. And what do we mean by that? We mean the canopies are not touching the roof. So you do get another point for that, but many of us might have, some branches, some things reaching over to the roof. It's something that you probably would not want anyway. It's dangerous if there's a storm. That also provides an avenue for all sorts of critters, including rats, to find a way into your attic. Squirrels, raccoons, all of that. So it's just a good idea not to have the canopies over the roof. And you don't want the roots close enough to disturb the foundation of your house or any hardscape. What is hardscape? It's a sidewalk, it's a patio. The definition of a hardscape in general is anything in your yard out there that's not a plant. For these purposes, we mean, a surface area where you're going to walk. So you get another point for that if the trees are appropriately placed for their mature size, that it's not going to be trouble for your house and end up costing you money and all sorts of issues later. All right, this is the way I have reminded myself that it's time for Dr. Lester to speak and to give us information on Florida Friendly Principle number 2, watering efficiently.
Okay, I like that. That works pretty well.
Yeah, and I was very nice and chose a nice picture.
Okay, well, thank you. Well,
yeah, I have all kinds of pictures, but I chose a nice one.
Yeah, there's plenty of awful pictures of me out there. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about FFL principle number 2, and that's the section for watering efficiently. And obviously, irrigation is very important for a number of different reasons here in Central Florida, because if you irrigate incorrectly or irrigate too much, you're going to cause leaching, which is when the water just naturally goes through our sandy soils. Unfortunately, when it does that, it's going to take any fertilizer, pollutants, oil, pesticides, herbicides, whatever else is not bound to the soil with it. And heavy rains and overwatering are eventually going to wash all that down deep enough where it gets into the aquifer. And all of our water, all of our drinking water, all the water that Hernando County Utilities sends out in the great big pipe comes from underground. We don't have any reservoirs or lakes or rivers here that we take any kind of drinking water out of. We have plenty of lakes and ponds and retention ponds, but none of that water is used for, hopefully none of it's used for irrigation, because that can cause a lot of problems, and none of it's used for drinking. So watering efficiently to protect our water resources is really important. So you're going to have to get 2 out of the 6 points if you want to get silver certification, 3 out of the 6 points for gold. And the nice thing is, if you have absolutely no irrigation in your yard, you don't have an in-ground sprinkler system, you don't have the little wand or spray things that you go out there with a garden hose and water on your own, you automatically get all the points, and we just skip the rest of this section and move on. But don't worry, if you do have irrigation, you can still get points, because like Lilly said, university is just looking to make sure that you irrigate correctly. So you can go on to the next slide.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
That's your job.
Yeah, sorry.
So high volume irrigation, and that's the applies mostly to in-ground sprinkler systems that you would have mostly watering your lawn, but in subdivision yards, it's set up where it waters the lawn, it waters the flower beds, it waters the shrubs and trees. Heck, sometimes it waters the driveway and the side of your house also, if it's not adjusted just correctly. So I have my little Florida friendly guide here with the points and everything to double check with. So you get 2 points potentially if you have no high volume irrigation is being used on the site. So if you're like myself, I do have an in-ground sprinkler system, but since we bought the house, it has not worked. The controller box was broken. Oak tree in my next door neighbor's backyard got hit by a lightning strike and broke the box. So technically my system exists, but it does not work. I don't know what kind of points Lilly would give me or not give me for that one, but I need to replace the box just, because, but I never run it. I have never run it. So I use no high volume irrigation.
Therefore, you would get all the points.
Exactly. I get all the points.
Mine has been disconnected. In fact, my husband even took the box away because we killed it putting in a pool and never have, revived the irrigation system, nor do I plan to.
Yeah, so if you have no high volume irrigation, with the either rotor heads or pop-up sprinkler heads that are installed in the ground, then you get those points. Next slide. So irrigation times, you need to, and let me find where it's listed here. Turf grass and landscape plants are irrigated only as needed, according to the University of Florida recommendations. And obviously you need to stay within compliance of the existing watering restrictions, which if you live here in Hernando County, you're only allowed to irrigate your lawn once a week. If you have to go out there with a garden hose and water your vegetable garden or your flowers or something like that, you're allowed to. But it's the in-ground irrigation systems, you can only run them once a week. And the day when you're allowed to run them is based on the last number of your address. So you see here, if the last number of your address is a 5, like ours is, my day I know is Wednesday to irrigate. And you can only do it before 8 a.m. or after 6 p.m. just once, not before 8 a.m. and then again after 6 p.m. So no pushing it out there. But to get these points, you have to irrigate just as needed and staying within your watering restrictions, depending on where you live. If anybody here lives in, let's say, Pasco County, Citrus County, or another county, then your rules are going to be different there, and you want to check with your utilities or extension office in your county to find out your watering restrictions. So next slide. So if you have a high-tech rain sensor, you get an extra 2 points. Now what that is, it's some type of smart controller. And if you look online, you would be amazed at the technology that's being used nowadays to turn your irrigation system on or off, all depending on whether it's raining or not. Even the old-fashioned ones do that. But now it's based on how moist your soil is. If the soil is dry, your system can run. If your soil is still moist, it automatically does not run. This would include an evapotranspiration system, which is not used by homeowners very often that I know of. It is used by commercial growers, and that is literally a weather station that measures a lot of different factors to determine how much water your plants are actually using and drawing up through them, and then that determines when you irrigate and when you don't irrigate. Like I said, right now, you really don't run across that at a homeowner level very often yet.
I think they have it for homeowners, different types of smart controllers that you can control from your phone.
Sure, well, they have soil moisture sensors and other ones, but the evapotranspiration
Correct, right,
is a very large, complicated unit that is used for commercial farms. And commercial farms that use something like that, I know for commercial growers, when they get away from the big overhead, the huge sprinklers that just drown the entire property, to drip irrigation and then throw in evapotranspiration units, they can cut their water usage by like 90%.
Wow.
So that's a pretty major savings for them because they use a lot of water, a large nursery or commercial grower. But something that homeowners can get is something that's called a soil moisture sensor. And I don't really see one specifically on the pictures here, but that is a unit that gets buried in your yard just a few inches deep, down there at the same level where the grass roots are, and constantly measures the moisture in the soil. Now you have to put it in the right spot. You can't put it in the wettest point in your yard or the driest, because then it's going to give a incorrect reading and not work correctly. They had those sensors where you had to hardwire them back to your controller box. Now they have Wi-Fi ones. So you can go out in your yard and bury this little Wi-Fi unit, and it automatically talks to your controller in your garage and turns it off when it's not needed. So like I said, it's hard to keep on top of the new technology about what is available out there. And you can look for much, much better units and equipment, things that are all Wi-Fi and all obviously controllable by your phone. There's so much that has phone apps associated with it. There are people that run entire greenhouse operations from their smartphone. They look at their phone and, oh, I need to run the irrigation. I'll turn it off over here. And here's the temperature, humidity, everything. It's pretty amazing what they have now, what's coming up. So next slide. So separate zones. This is something that's very important, and unfortunately, we don't see often enough. With an in-ground irrigation system in your yard, you have two different kinds of sprayer heads. One is the really big one, and that's called a rotor head, and it's going to spray a lot of water and cover a big section of your lawn. The other ones are the little heads that just pop up, and they stay up, and they just spray, 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 spray until they go off and then drop back down. Those are spray heads. They generally need to run for different lengths of time. So if your irrigation system is set up where you have both types of head in one zone, you really don't know how long to run that zone for. Because, you know, for the rotors, they should run for maybe 60 or 70 minutes. For the pop-up sprinklers, the spray heads, they should run for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So if your irrigation system is laid out correctly, which, like I said, we don't see very often, a lot of times the homeowner is going to have to go back and kind of retrofit it or tinker with it to get it right. But if you do have the heads in separate zones, then you get extra points for that. Good for you. Low flow irrigation, you get extra points if you have just the micro irrigation or the soaker hoses, because obviously that uses a lot less irrigation. So if low flow irrigation is installed and maintained in the plant and flower beds, you get an extra 2 points for that. So this area here would not be covered by one of the rotor heads or spray heads that's using a lot of water. It's covered by low flow irrigation, which is using very small amounts of water. It's targeted just to the base of the plant. You know, you're not watering the weeds and the sidewalk in the picture here. You're just watering the plants. So you get extra points for low flow irrigation. And you get extra points for preventative maintenance. And this is so important. And I normally tell homeowners, you may hear like you're supposed to go out there and run your system and test it annually or once every season. No, you need to go out there and check it like every month, especially if you have a service that's cutting your lawn, because those big lawnmowers really put a beating on these sprinkler heads, and they break and they get knocked out of angle where they're supposed to be spraying. So now you're just doing a fine job of watering your driveway and the side of your house and your car in the middle of the night. So even here it says the irrigation system is maintained seasonally. Seasonally will probably get you the points. Go out there and do it every month, because you would be amazed at just how quickly and how easily these small plastic parts can get damaged or just knocked out of place. And a lot of times it's very easy to just, like in the picture here, grab that sprinkler head from behind and give it a gentle twist to the left or the right and make a spray where you want it to. Easy to fix, but if you don't go out there and check it frequently, you're never going to know that you have something broken. And then while it is broken, you can potentially waste huge amounts of money and run up a huge water bill. Next.
Well, we have different seasons every 3 days. So
yeah, we do. I mean, recently we keep popping between dead of winter and early spring. And but yeah, like I said, and especially, you know, if you cut your lawn and you just have a small lawnmower, it doesn't usually beat up your irrigation system too badly. But those commercial services with those big lawnmowers that go flying through the neighborhood and flying around your yard, yeah, you need to check it frequently. And pretty much every time you check it, you will find something that you need to either fix or at least tweak. So let's change directions and go into fertilizing appropriately here. And once again, the reason why this is so important is because that extra fertilizer or improperly applied fertilizer or excessive fertilizer contributes to pollution of water resources. It's either going to leach down through the sand, or it's just going to wash right off of your yard and down the driveway, down the street, down the gutters, and into a retention pond or a lake or something. And it's going to turn it green. It's going to turn it nasty. It's going to cause a lot of problems. So you have to have 1 out of 4 of the points for silver, 2 out of the 4 potential points for gold. And if you never ever fertilize anything in your yard and I believe there's a little asterisk in here. No supplemental fertilizing is used in the landscape. Once the plants are established, then you automatically get all the points and you can just move on, and we're done with this section here. I never fertilize my lawn. I do fertilize my palm trees, so I guess I would have to get the additional points here. I wouldn't be exempt from
Palm trees
the
are an
fertilizer
exception to
section.
that. You'll see later on, palm trees are an exception to that rule.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great if you don't fertilize your lawn, or if you try to avoid fertilizing as best you can. There's certain things that you kind of really need to fertilize. Palm trees are one example. You need to fertilize with a quality, that means that the expensive stuff, palm fertilizer, that's going to give you the best results. And citrus, for anybody who still has citrus trees, you really need to fertilize with a quality citrus tree fertilizer, because it automatically has all the micronutrients in it that are really important for healthy citrus. So if you do fertilize, you need to get a soil test. And I know that when Lilly comes out and goes through the checklist, you have to have had a soil test already to qualify for any kind of certification. Is that true?
They took that out.
Oh, they did. I know that that
Yeah.
was in there. Okay.
It's only, you get extra points if you have done it within the last year, and then maybe even more if you've done it like recently. We'll see as we go along, but they took that out as one of the top qualifications.
Okay, yeah, I knew that was one of the basic ones. You
Mhm.
had to get a soil test, otherwise you're not going to pass.
No, you don't anymore.
So now it's a little bit more optional, but still a soil test is a really good idea, because many times your soil, after you get a test, it comes back and everything's fine. But some people, because I have to look at a lot of soil test results, I see some wacky results every once in a while. And for any of you who live out in Hernando Beach or very, very close to the coast, you may have sky-high soil pH, which is not terrible. It's just going to limit some of the things that you can grow. If you have sky-high pH, please don't try planting any azaleas or gardenias or blueberries, because they're never going to survive and do well. A soil test, we have all the information that you would need to get a soil test done, so contact our office and we're happy to set you up. It's only, I think it's still $10 per sample, so it's very inexpensive and not difficult to do. So if you're interested, contact me or contact our office. You get extra points if you do not fertilize established plants. People will sometimes ask, how much fertilizer do I need to add to my flowers or my hedges? And this is a really good example here in this picture, the kind of landscape material here, the hedges and a small bush, the, I call it monkey grass, the border grass is there. None of that really needs any kind of additional fertilizer after it's been planted and is fairly well established. You never want to fertilize unless you have a good reason to do so. So maybe one of these plants would start to show a nutrient deficiency, and you may need to correct that with fertilizer. But none of these plants, and from looking at this picture, they all look healthy. They're all doing really well. You have absolutely no need or no good reason to fertilize anything in this picture right here. And you do get extra points for not fertilizing after they're established. You get extra points if you're, and this applies to fertilizing your lawn, if you're using something called a deflector shield, and that's that little panel on the side of the spreader. So if you look closely at this picture, when this person is walking along, they're fertilizing the grass and their lawn, but the fertilizer is not shooting onto the sidewalk, because no matter how much you fertilize that sidewalk, it's never going to grow. And if you leave fertilizer on the sidewalk, the next time it rains, it washes off and goes somewhere where we don't want it to. And if you live on the coast, or if you live on any kind of body of water, you have to maintain a zone where you're not fertilizing, and you have to have a deflector shield so that you're not shooting fertilizer into a canal or a creek or a drainage ditch or something like that. So you get extra points for using this when you fertilize your lawn. And then pH, you get extra points if you have had a soil pH test. performed within the last year. And I already kind of covered, this is one of the
Yeah.
bags that we can
Yeah.
give you at our office, and we'll give you a form to fill out. You mail your sample up to the soil testing lab in Gainesville, and they take it from there. Only takes maybe a week, most of the year. It's only $10, so it's pretty easy.
Okay, now it's my turn again. Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Lester. Did a great job there. We're also going to cover the fourth one for today. We're going to cover mulch. So to earn some points, you need to get 2 out of these 5 things we're going to talk about for silver, 3 out of the 5 for gold. So here's what I call leaf it there. Self-mulching areas exist under trees where leaves can remain as they fall. All that basically means is there's areas in your yard that kind of, you don't rake up the leaves that fall. And you may or may not add some extra mulch there, but you treat it like the forest and just leave it there. That's also very, very good for a lot of caterpillars and a lot of insects and things that use that for shelter. Cypress mulch is not used. I kind of think that should be up on one of the lists as a top qualification. But the reason Florida Friendly Landscaping does not recommend cypress mulch is because of the questionable way it's produced. Unless you absolutely are 100% sure and can show me receipts that you went out to a cypress lumber yard where it is a byproduct of that, cypress industry. But if you just went to a big box store and bought it, chances are very, very high that somebody went out into a wetland and chopped down young trees and immediately shredded it up and sold it to be used as mulch. That is not a sustainable or ethical practice that Florida Friendly Landscaping wants to encourage. So that's the short story on that. Pull it away. This, if you've ever heard me give any kind of talk, this is absolutely the wrong way to mulch something. This is a mature tree here, but you're burying it, for one thing. You are wasting your money because you could use that mulch in many other places around your yard. But and we call that volcano mulching, and that is one of the things we completely discourage. Each tree like this, the bottom of the tree, it'll have a part that actually flares out. And so we have a campaign going that was started by Dr. Whitney Elmore in Pasco County. She came up with the name, #FreeTheFlare. So every time you see this, we want to free those flares, let those flares out. And so that the tree gets enough moisture and doesn't get damaged by too much moisture and fungus and all that. For an adult tree, we actually want the mulch pulled away 12 to 18 inches away from that base of the tree. You can make a nice ring around it, and it is very useful, but you don't want to overdo mulch. Mulch I compare to watering. It's a very good thing, but you can overdo it, and when you overdo it, you can actually cause some damage. So pull that away. And here again, pull it away from shrubs, not just trees. So even though I think this is a small tree, he is demonstrating here that you should pull that mulch away. If it's a shrub, in one of your beds, at least 1 to 2 inches away from the base of the shrub. If I have any Pasco County participants today, this is your Master Gardener Coordinator. And he told me just this morning that I was not allowed to say this picture was taken years and years and years and years and years and years ago. So now I have to do it. It was taken years and years and years ago. There's Mr. Mall for you, pulling the mulch away from the shrub. And also not too much mulch. We mentioned that with how much you put on a particular plant. You only want to use 2 to 3 inches and pull it away from the base. But also some people, they get tired of fighting their yard. So they think, an entire mulch yard is the way to go. And way back at that beginning of that first list, it does say the yard has to have plants. That's kind of one of the main basic things that a Florida-friendly landscape needs is plants. So all rock yards do not qualify. Rubber mulch does not qualify, but a yard, and this is where you get kind of in a sticky area, so let me explain it. If it's all mulch and hardly any plants, does not qualify. But here it says if not more than 25% of the landscape is just open areas of mulch. What they mean by that is with no plants in those mulch. So if you have that, you can turn that into a plant bed and add some shrubs and trees. And then that mulch is, accomplishing more than just stopping the weeds or making you not have to mow. There was one yard that qualified several years ago. The gentleman has moved now, so he doesn't need to worry about requalifying. But he was in a very, very shady community. I mean that literally. A lot of oak trees, and so growing grass was just extremely difficult. So he used the leaves from those oak trees, and that was his whole yard was like mulched oak leaves, but he had plants everywhere too, and specific areas to walk and where the plants were too. So yes, he qualified, but because it wasn't just mulch with no plants, if you can understand that.
Yes, we get it.
Okay. So if you're ready to learn more,
Yes.
the next class that we are going to have is going to be next Tuesday. That will be part 3. And we are going to cover the other 5 principles: attract wildlife, manage yard pests responsibly, recycle, reduce stormwater runoff, and protect the waterfront. And here again is the link to find this checklist that Dr. Lester and I were going over. But that's kind of hard to write all that in. Just Google checklist of Florida-friendly certified yard. The other thing you can do is email me. I'll be glad to send you the link. The other thing is it's on my Facebook page as well. Here are the emails again for me and for Dr. Lester. I'm going to put this recording back on Facebook today. And at some point, it'll be on Hernando County Government's YouTube channel as well. There's one guy who kind of edits these and gets them up on the YouTube for me. So that takes a little bit longer because he is the one guy for the county. And he does more video than just me. Imagine that. Here are some resources that can help you in your Florida-friendly journey. Also, again, as always, if you would like a PDF of this, just email me. I'll be glad to send it to you. And every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we have a virtual plant clinic. I should say Dr. Lester has a virtual plant clinic. I'm just his Ed McMahon co-host on that program. And we usually have other guests, which are other really smart people from around the state. So if you go to their Facebook page, Hernando Extension's Facebook page, every Thursday at 10 o'clock, you'll see Dr. Lester and usually me, and usually some fun, really smart guest. And that's kind of casual. People send in questions. We chat about them. And we have a good time. Now I'm going to thank you all for joining us. And we will have one commercial in from Hernando County Mosquito Control. Time to hear from our sponsors.
All right. Well, thank you, Lily. Great class as always. I was wondering if we can give points for avoiding those mosquito.
I would be glad to give those. Yeah, I don't make those points. They make them in Gainesville, but that would be a great thing to add in there.
It is. It would be great because, of course, for people who enjoy to garden and being out in their yard, it creates a much better environment. And I was just going to go over really short that just avoiding those sitting spots of water will help to avoid those mosquito breeding spots. So if you just maintain your gutters, your flower pot bases, make sure you dump those, bird baths, and if you have bromeliads, you want to hose those out. Just avoid those little sitting pockets of water, and that'll avoid that mosquito breeding in your yard, which in turn will make it for a much more enjoyable environment. If you do have any fountains in your yard, any kind of water that does sit for a long period of time, other than a bird bath, because that's too small, give us a call and we'd love to bring you out some mosquito fish, and that will also help to eat that larvae, and you can enjoy a water feature without having to worry about the mosquitoes. And just real brief, next Saturday, January the 23rd, is our Hernando County Mosquito Control Tire Amnesty Day. So that is a day where you can bring junk tires without rims to the Hernando County Fairgrounds at no charge, unlimited quantity. And you can bring them there for disposal. They will be recycled at a facility. So if you can get them there, we can get them out of the county, and that helps us to avoid any dangerous mosquito breeding populations. So that's January the 23rd from 9 to 3. You do need to bring them there. We will be there to assist you in loading them into the trailers. That's about it for today.
Okay, let me see what we
Thank
have
you.
in our chat. I don't think we have a lot. Whoa, I can't find the chat. Dr. Bill, can you find the where our chat is?
Yep, I clicked on the chat box. I don't see any comments.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's why I can't find it. All right
Okay.
then. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank both of you for joining me today. Thank everyone for listening. And like I said, you know, some of this is hard to digest, all of it. So get on the Facebook page, get that link so you can look at this list yourself. Well, it's kind of disappearing in my flowers there, but there it is. And, you know, then give me a call when you think you're ready to come out. I'm going to go up to Gainesville at some point and get some more signs so that we have plenty of them. And, you know, we'll see where we can go from there. Thank you, everybody, very much. Let me turn off
Thank
our
you,
recording.
Carol.
Yes. I thank you, and everyone have a great day.
Okay, great. Thanks. See you later.
Mm.